Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 555 based on novel. So let's start. In the core of the cave world, inside the furnace surrounded by black fog, was the 5 flowers 8 doors formation. The 5 flowers had bloomed and only the 3rd flower had withered, but the 8 doors were integrated inside the 5th flower. It could be anything in the world, whether it was a blade of grass, a tree, a person, a beast, anything in the world could be the door. As a result, finding the real door among the 8 in the 5th flower was simply too difficult. Wang Lin had no clues, but he still had to enter the 5th flower, the last level of this cave. The 5th flower required the 3rd soul to bloom. The 3rd soul contained all the memories, and once it was absorbed, the 5th flower would change. It would create a world using 7 colored memories. The sky was not blue and seemed to be covered with dark clouds, and behind the dark clouds were 9 suns hanging up in the sky. The suns gave off hot light, but the earth was simply too large. Even with 9 suns, there seemed to be places where the sunlight wouldn't reach. Wind swept across the earth with a sense of humidity, kicking off layers of dust which flew off into the endless mountain range. As the wind howled, it caused large amounts of leaves to rustle. There were many large pavilions and palaces made of jade built within the mountain range. There were over 1,000 buildings that overlapped with the mountains. From afar, it was difficult to tell if the palaces and pavilions were added to the mountains or carved from the mountains. Every palace and pavilion was different. They were spread across the mountain range, like a sky temple in the mountains. A thin layer of clouds shrouded the mountain range, making it appear and disappear, adding a layer of mystery. There were hundreds of cranes flying through the clouds as if they were playing around. There seemed to be people sitting on the cranes, but it was impossible to see them clearly due to the clouds. Inside the mountain range, there was water flowing. The water had flowed for countless years to form a long river that flowed down the mountains into a pool. The pool branched out into countless different branches. Wang Lin sat on a rock beside the river. He looked at the river and frowned. The sound of a bell was echoing from a distant peak, but he didn't care. He had been in the 5th flower for more than 2 months, but he had found no clues about finding the real door. The river was clear and his reflection could be seen. He wore a blue robe that gave off a faint, green light that contained a certain amount of protection. He also had a red string on his waist with a jade token hanging on it. This jade was crystal clear, and it was not ordinary. As it flashed, it was very beautiful. However, the reflection of Wang Lin inside the river was very different from the usual Wang Lin. His appearance, red lips and white teeth, sword-like brows and star-like eyes. In particular, his eyes were deep, as if they contained endless power. People of the same sex were bound to yield, and the opposite sex was bound to admire. He had the appearance of someone around 18 or 19 years old. This was the most handsome person Wang Lin had seen in his life. However, if you were to add the passage of time and the helplessness of life to this face, it would become extremely similar to the statue Wang Lin had taken from greed. Looking at the reflection in the river, Wang Lin still had a strange expression even after he had already spent 2 months here. After entering the 5th flower, which is formed by the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories, I became him. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze as he sat there and looked up at the sky. In his ears, the bells from the Great Hall began to echo again. Immortal Astral Continent. This place is the Immortal Astral Continent. I didn't expect to step onto the Immortal Astral Continent first through 7-colored's memory. Wang Lin looked up at the 9 suns in the sky and revealed a bitter smile. This world belonged to the 7-colored celestial sovereign. It was formed by his memories. It could be said that everything here was an illusion, but they were things that existed. The sects of the Immortal Astral Continent are not something the cave world could compare to. Wang Lin touched the Dao robe he was wearing. The protection on it could block the full power attack of an ascendant cultivator. However, how can I find the real door? Perhaps only the 3rd soul knows. My appearance now is due to the 3rd soul as well. But I can tell that I haven't integrated fully with the 3rd soul. I also can't fuse with it. Wang Lin casually reached into the water and scattered some. However, At this moment, he frowned once more. Su Dao, you got guts. The bell has rung twice and you haven't gone to pay your respects to teacher, who just came out from closed-door cultivation. A sharp voice echoed behind Wang Lin. A young man about 20 years old walked down from the mountain wearing the same blue robe as Wang Lin. He stared at Wang Lin with a cold gaze. I came to catch you and bring you back under the orders of senior brother to be punished by the sect rules. The young man sneered as he approached Wang Lin. He reached toward Wang Lin's hair, apparently wanting to drag Wang Lin by the hair back to the hall. Just as his hands got close, Wang Lin turned around and coldly looked at the young man. This gaze caused the young man to tremble. It was as if Wang Lin's gaze was a pair of swords that stabbed into his soul. This young man's expression suddenly changed and he stood there like a wooden chicken. This only lasted for a moment, and when Wang Lin withdrew his gaze, he resumed breathing. He staggered back several steps and nearly fell. He looked at Wang Lin with fear for the first time. You. In the world of the fifth flower, Wang Lin had taken on the appearance of the young seven-colored celestial sovereign and also obtained the memories of his early years. He knew that the young seven-colored celestial sovereign had a weak character and wasn't as ambitious and ruthless as he was later. The seven-colored celestial sovereign at this age was very talented and should have been protected by the sect. However, his teacher was always in closed-door cultivation, and his talent attracted a lot of jealousy. His life in the sect was not good. The young man before him was one that often bullied him. They never did it outright, always acting in secret. They often used the excuse of punishing him by the sect rules. The seven-colored celestial sovereign didn't catch the attention of the ancestor until more than 10 years later, then he was slowly raised by the sect. However, Wang Lin was not Su Dao, so he wouldn't allow history to pass as usual. As the young man retreated in horror, Wang Lin stepped forward and stood beside the youth. The young man's face turned place and his eyes were filled with fear. He still couldn't imagine how this had happened. He had been gone for a while and had just come back yesterday. He didn't expect this Su Dao to suddenly become like a different person. Before, Su Dao would be bullied as he wished. The young man was about to speak, but his voice was suddenly stopped. Wang Lin grabbed his neck and raised him into the air. His breathing was stopped. His face turned red and he grabbed Wang Lin's arm in an attempt to struggle free. But no matter how much he struggled, Wang Lin had an iron grip that didn't loosen at all. Wang Lin held the young man's neck and pulled him closer. He looked at the young man and said, word for word, "Don't provoke me, there is no next time." The young man's vision was already turning blurry, and he was almost scared out of his mind. He wasn't able to manage a nod, but his appearance showed that he would never dare to have a thought about provoking Wang Lin. Wang Lin slowly loosened his hand and smiled. He patted the young man's head and said, "Follow me up the mountain." With that, he turned to walk toward the great hall on the top of the mountain. The young man touched his neck and gasped for air. It took him a while to recover. His eyes were filled with fear and awe. At that moment, he had felt death and knew that this Su Dao would have really killed him. While trembling, he quickly followed Wang Lin. The mountain path was winding, and each step was like walking on clouds. Wang Lin walked toward the mountain top as the wind blew at him, causing his long hair to flutter. The smell of the earth entered his heart, and it was very comfortable. With celestial energy nourishing all life, more people are suitable to cultivate into celestials. Even the grass and trees would gain spirit. There are even ferocious beasts that turn human, although Wang Lin knew that this celestial energy and smell were all fake, that just meant that the real immortal astral continent was truly like this. It was completely different from the cave world. There were dark clouds in the sky, and as more dark clouds gathered, they began to collide. Thunderous rumbles echoed as lightning moved through the clouds like silver snakes. "It's about to rain." Wang Lin arrived at the top of the mountain as he muttered and saw the magnificent hall at the top. The hall was more than 1,000 feet tall and stood there like a giant beast. Outside the temple, there was a square more than 10,000 feet large, and in the middle was a huge furnace. There were 9 arm-thick incense sticks burning, with green smoke flying into the air. At this moment, there were nearly 100 cultivators standing on the square. They were in groups of 2 and 3 talking to each other. The moment Wang Lin entered the square, the thunder in the sky rumbled and big drops of rain fell. The rain formed a curtain that even the figures of people became a blur. The rain fell on the square, making the rain sound even louder. In an instant, the entire square was covered in flowing rain and the ripples created when the raindrops landed. The rain quickly fell and the voices became even more intense. However, the 9 incense sticks were still burning and showed no signs of extinguishing. The smoke continued to rise, and no matter how fast the rain fell, it was unable to make the smoke dissipate. The smoke mixed with the rain, creating a very beautiful image. It was like a dream. As the rain fell, an umbrella was held up above Wang Lin's head. It was the young man that had followed Wang Lin. The young man had an embarrassed expression and decided to simply not to look at Wang Lin as he held up the umbrella. In the square, there were nearly 100 cultivators, and they all looked over. There was a group led by a young man in a black robe. They frowned and were about to shout when the third bell rang. As the bell rang, the smoke that floated in the air distorted and gathered to form a vortex. As the vortex rotated, it pushed the rain aside. A blurry figure slowly appeared inside the vortex. The figure walked out and stood in the sky. "Welcome back from closed-door cultivation, teacher." The surrounding cultivators, numbering almost 100, clasped their hands at the figure. He was a middle-aged man who had a head of black hair scattered on his shoulders. He was not handsome, but he had a strange temperament and an otherworldly aura. As he stood in the sky, his gaze swept past his disciples below. When he saw Wang Lin and the youth that was still holding the umbrella behind Wang Lin, he couldn't help but frown. However, he soon smiled. "Su Dao, Ju Li, the 2 of you follow teacher to the hall. The rest of you can leave." The middle-aged man's words were soft. He stepped into the air and walked into the hall. The young man in black, who was the leader of the people that wanted to reprimand Wang Lin, nodded with a serious expression. He looked at Wang Lin and walked toward the hall. Wang Lin's expression was calm. In the memories he had obtained from the third soul, his teacher was very good to him. If not for the fact that his teacher was always in closed-door cultivation, he wouldn't be suffering unfair treatment in the sect. In the early years, Seven Colored's personality was cowardly and he never said these things. As for Ju Li, he was Seven Colored's senior brother who was also very talented. On the surface, he was gentle, but in truth, he felt contempt towards Seven Colored. He ignored all the people bullying Seven Colored. Stepping into the rain, Wang Lin walked into the hall under everyone's jealous gazes. Inside the hall, the middle-aged man was sitting on a chair, and Ju Li was respectfully standing on the side. "Teacher won't be out of closed-door cultivation for long. After I settle a few matters, I'll go back into closed-door cultivation," the middle-aged man spoke slowly. His gaze swept past Ju Li and Wang Lin before silently pondering. Wang Lin had seen this in the memories from the third soul. He knew that after Su Dao's teacher told them a few things, he would teach Su Dao and Ju Li an art. This was one of the 3 most powerful arts of the Donglin sect, the introduction to the Cloud Dao heavenly art. If one could reach the peak of this art, they could learn its essence. The introductory art was short, but it was mysterious and not everyone could cultivate it. Once the introductory art had been used, clouds would appear. If the clouds were thin, then that person was not suited to learn the art. If clouds were dense and a shadow appeared within them, then it would be for the best. In addition, the time it took to complete it was also tested. Over the countless years in the Donglin sect, the people that obtained the qualification the fastest had taken 7 breaths, while the slowest had taken several hours. Back then, when Seven Colored was learning this technique, he was scared by Ju Li's cold gaze and hesitated. His speed slowed down and he took 20 breaths to complete a cycle. And Ju Li completed it in 11 breaths. Due to Ju Li's cold gaze, his mind wasn't focused and he wasn't able to produce a lot of clouds, causing him to be suppressed by Ju Li. Then a shadow appeared from within Ju Li's clouds and devoured all of Su Dao's clouds. Seven Colored's teacher saw this and let out a sigh. He no longer taught Su Dao one of the three great arts of the Donglin sect but taught him the seven-colored celestial art that was lower in rank. Wang Lin knew this from the memories he had obtained, and it seemed impossible to change. Today, this scene appeared once more. Wang Lin stood there and silently pondered. He didn't know if he should follow the memory and suffer the same as seven-colored did back then, or go against the memory and change everything. According to logic, he should follow the seven-colored's memory so he could fuse with the third soul even more. Perhaps he would eventually fuse enough to know where the real door was. But he didn't know if this would happen or not. Also, Wang Lin didn't want to fully integrate with the third soul. If he did this, Xie would never be able to awaken. The moment Wang Lin fully integrated with the third soul, Xie would disappear and Wang Lin would become the new seven-colored. In addition, Wang Lin wasn't willing to act like this. This art is one of the three most powerful arts of the Donglin S sect. It is called the Cloud Dao Heavenly Art. Your cultivation levels aren't high enough to learn it, so you must learn the introductory art first. However, there is a restriction to learning this art. Only one person from each lineage in that generation can learn it. Today, I chose the two of you to find the person who is most suitable for this art, the middle-aged man's voice echoed. He began to talk about the selection method, including the intensity of the clouds and the time it took to complete a cycle. Zhu Li's head was lowered. His eyes were filled with desire he found hard to hide. The heavenly Dao was damaged, and it will take a long time to repair, the middle-aged man slowly said. Then he taught the introductory art. Then he waved his right hand and two clouds flew out and entered Wang Lin and Zhu Li's bodies. The clouds have entered your bodies. The two of you have to immediately sit down and cycle the clouds as fast as possible. The first to succeed will have the advantage. During this process, the two of you must focus and not be disturbed by external thoughts. As the middle-aged man spoke, Zhu Li immediately sat down. Wang Lin also sat down. Just as he was about to cycle the cloud inside his body, Zhu Li looked up at Wang Lin. His gaze was grim and threatening. The middle-aged man naturally saw this and frowned. He didn't say anything, and instead looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin let out a sigh in his heart. It was this gaze that made the timid Su Dao lose his qualification. However, today he was not Su Dao but Wang Lin. As Zhu Li's gaze swept by, Wang Lin's eyes became cold and casually looked at Zhu Li. This gaze caused Zhu Li to tremble. He clearly felt a killing intent come from Wang Lin's eyes, causing his mind to tremble. At this moment, Wang Lin had already closed his eyes, and the cloud energy was rapidly cycling in his body. Zhu Li quickly closed his eyes as well. Time slowly passed. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. When the 8th breath arrived, large amounts of clouds spread out from Wang Lin's body. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he suddenly stood up. The clouds around Wang Lin's body became even more dense until they enveloped most of the hall. The clouds churned and faint roars could be heard from within. At this moment, it was the 20th breath, and Zhu Li had barely managed to cycle the cloud once to produce some clouds. However, compared to Wang Lin, it was simply too insignificant. The moment the clouds came out of his body, the clouds from Wang Lin's body raged and formed a giant dragon head. This dragon head was fierce and its eyes were filled with a fierce gaze as it devoured Zhu Li. The clouds around Zhu Li were absorbed rapidly by the dragon. He coughed out blood and looked weakened. The memory had been changed. The moment it was reversed, the great hall became distorted. The middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin while completely ignoring Zhu Li, and his figure also began to distort. At the same time, the square outside the hall, the mountain outside the square, the mountain range outside the mountain, and the Donglin sect outside the mountain range all began to distort. It was as if the entire world was about to collapse. This was the shocking scene that unfolded after the memory was changed. Good. Su Dao, you're the second person under your teacher's lineage that has the qualification to learn the Cloud Dao heavenly art. The middle-aged man laughed as his figure became distorted. He looked at the terrified Zhu Li and spoke once more. Zhu Li, although you don't have the qualification to learn the Cloud Dao heavenly art, teacher will teach you the seven-colored celestial art. When the middle-aged man's words echoed, tearing pain appeared in Wang Lin's mind, as if everything was going to collapse. The aura of the 8 doors suddenly appeared but quickly dissipated. Following that, the distortion slowly disappeared and returned to normal. However, a huge wave was set off in Wang Lin's heart. I understand. Change the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories to create contradictions, and the moments of confusion will allow me to sense the 8 doors. The greater the contradiction and confusion, the clearer the feeling. I can even use it to find the real door. This is my other method. Change the 7-colored celestial sovereign's memories. Su Dao, you have to spend time practicing this spell. In 5 months, the competition between those of your generation in the Dongling sect will begin. The top 10 can enter the Donglin pool. If you can enter, your future achievements will be immeasurable. Everything had changed. Wang Lin suddenly looked up. The third soul had a profound memory of the competition in 5 months. In that competition, after obtaining the qualification to cultivate the Cloud Dao heavenly art, coupled with his cultivation, which was already powerful within this generation, Zhu Li rushed into the top 10. He had finished in 9th place and obtained the reward of cultivating in the Donglin pool. As for Su Dao, after losing the qualification to cultivate the Cloud Dao heavenly art, he became even more timid. His personality became twisted and somewhat dark. He failed in the competition. It could be said that this competition was a huge turning point in Su Dao's life and a big reason why his personality changed. In the following years, Su Dao would enter a slump and rarely talk to people. He would be in closed-door cultivation alone until he happened to meet his ancestor. The ancestor would teach him, and he would slowly raise his head. Unfortunately, the good thing didn't last. An unexpected encounter caused Su Dao to be expelled from the Donglin sect. After that, over the countless years, the Donglin sect Su Dao was no more. What remained was the 7-colored celestial sovereign, who struggled and unwillingly became cruel and ruthless until he finally created the 7 Dao sect. As for Zhu Li, the day the 7-colored celestial sovereign completed his Dao, he captured Zhu Li and cruelly killed him. All of these events played out in Wang Lin's mind like pictures. He sat in the mountain beside the flowing river. He looked at the river as if he was looking at time flowing by. This was the 3rd day after Su Dao's teacher had taught him the Cloud Dao heavenly art and gone back into closed-door cultivation. As for Zhu Li, he had gone into closed-door cultivation as well, and his hatred for Su Dao was like Su Dao's hatred for him in the past. The river continued to flow and the third soul's memory became a blur in Wang Lin's mind and was replaced by the Cloud Dao heavenly art. The Donglin sect was one of the 9 sects' 13 factions of this area. Although not as powerful as the Purple Sun sect, it was very mysterious. Their disciples rarely went outside. The 3 great arts of the sect were very famous on the immortal astral continent and had been passed down since ancient times. Among the 3 great arts, the Cloud Dao heavenly art was very profound. It focused on the clouds of the world, and it was as ethereal as the Grand Dao of the world. After integrating with the cloud, borrow the cloud to absorb the essence of the world and use it to cast the great spells of the Cloud Dao. Forming one's own cloud beast that devoured clouds and spat out fog was the first spell of this art. This spell was hidden inside the introductory art. If one cultivated the introductory art to the limit, one could comprehend this spell. For others, the Cloud Dao heavenly art would require a lot of time and powerful comprehension in addition to a lot of time. However, Wang Lin already had a high cultivation level, something the past Zhu Li or Su Dao could not compare with. Adding on the fact that Wang Lin had 7 essences that he had comprehended himself, cultivating the introductory art very simple. Strands of smoke floated out from the river before him and flew toward him. After circling him a few times, they entered his body. Black smoke slowly came from both the beginning and end of this river. They were like clouds, and they all flew toward Wang Lin, slowly entering his body. Wang Lin's figure flickered inside the cloud. Shortly after, it wasn't only the river giving off white smoke, the grass was as well. Soon, Wang Lin could not even see his fingers within 1,000 feet around him. The white clouds moved as if there was a dragon within. I wonder if I can continue cultivating this Cloud Dao heavenly art once I leave the 5th flower, Wang Lin pondered inside the white clouds. Although he had only cultivated this spell for 2 days, he had seen how powerful and vast it was. This method of absorbing the clouds inside the body could change the structure of the body until it became like the clouds. It would be separated from the world and make it difficult for people to see through him. Wang Lin sat beside the river and 1 month passed in a flash. During this time, Wang Lin had been sitting there, absorbing the creation of this world. Strands of white gas entered his body, giving him a warm and comfortable feeling. The more he cultivated the art, the more distortion and signs of collapse would appear. However, unless something drastic enough to cause the memory to be turned upside down and collapse came up, these distortions wouldn't help Wang Lin find the real door. On this day, the clouds around Wang Lin completely disappeared, and when all the clouds entered Wang Lin's body, he opened his eyes. His eyes were like clouds, blurry but contained a strange force that could deter others. If others looked into his eyes, they would feel as if they were surrounded by dense clouds and lose themselves. This art is not ordinary. Wang Lin spat out a mouthful of foul air. This air was like a grey fog and moved like a dragon. After it was launched more than 30 feet, it slowly dissipated. The clouds here are not very dense, not enough to cultivate this art. If I want to complete the introductory portion and change the memory, I need to find more clouds to absorb. Wang Lin stood there and his eyes lit up. An image appeared in his mind. This was a map that he had created. 1 month ago, when Su Dao's teacher taught Wang Lin the Cloud Dao heavenly art, the change from the original memory caused the hidden 8 doors to appear. However, the feeling of the 8 doors instantly disappeared and Wang Lin could only get a rough map of their locations. During this month, as Wang Lin practiced the art, the constant distortions had allowed him to slowly form an outline. The positions of the 8 doors gradually became more clear. Wang Lin got up and jumped into the air. He disappeared from the small river and appeared in the sky above the Dawn Lin sect. He didn't stop as white clouds surrounded him, and he charged forward like a cloud. Cloud Dao art, endless flash. In the sky, dark clouds covered this area. Thunder rumbled and rain fell on the plain below. The dark clouds covered a wide range, and there was also a city below. This city contained countless mortals of the immortal astral continent. Wang Lin sat inside the dark clouds. His hands formed a seal and waved. The thunder became even more intense as the lightning swam endlessly through the clouds, and the rain began to pour even faster. However, the clouds began to churn as strands of the dark clouds were extracted and pulled into Wang Lin's body. In a flash, 7 days passed. After 7 days, the dark clouds had become thin and a large amount of them had disappeared. There was a piece of cloud that seemed to contain spirit and was quickly moving forward. The moment it touched another cloud, that cloud would begin to churn and be absorbed. Then this palm-sized cloud would quickly move away. Another 7 days passed after these 7 days. In a flash, it had been 2 months since Wang Lin learned the Cloud Dao heavenly art. The cloud that had drifted somewhere rapidly shrank until it turned into 7 cloud dragons, revealing the figure inside. Wang Lin let out a deep breath and opened his eyes. His pupils disappeared and were replaced by clouds. It was a shocking sight. In these 2 months, I have managed to cultivate the beginning part of the Cloud Dao to the 9th level, just a step from reaching completion. However, this isn't the biggest harvest. The real harvest is that in these 2 months of changing the memory, I have found one of the 8 doors. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a mysterious light, but through the clouds in his eyes, it looked strange. A door clearly appeared in the map he had drawn in his mind. If I'm lucky, perhaps I can find the real door with one try. Wang Lin stepped forward and charged at the earth below. Below him was an endless jungle with towering mountains. There would sometimes be roars from beasts echoing through the jungle. In a flash, Wang Lin charged into the jungle and charged toward the door he felt in his mind. Shortly after, Wang Lin stopped at a very ordinary-looking tree. This tree was more than 100 feet tall, and a person looked very small compared to it. This tree seemed to have survived for an unknown amount of time, and it would take about 5 people to completely surround it. A giant python more than 1,000 feet long was wrapped around the tree. It spat out its tongue as it looked at Wang Lin with its cold gaze. Wang Lin ignored the python. He placed his right hand on the tree and slowly closed his eyes. The python's head shrank and it climbed up the tree. It could feel how terrifying Wang Lin was and didn't dare to provoke him. After climbing up several dozen feet, the python leaped off the tree and landed on the ground. It kicked a lot of dead leaves into the air before it quickly slithered away into the jungle. Just as the python left, Wang Lin opened his eyes and looked at it. He charged straight at the python and grabbed its tail. The python twisted its body to break free, and a monstrous, black light came from its body. The shadow of a giant door slowly appeared on the back of the python. This python was one of the 8 doors, not the tree. Wang Lin clearly felt this when the python tried to leave. Staring at the door that appeared on the python's back, Wang Lin stepped forward. This video will end here.